Welcome to this introduction video to your virtual intercultural mentoring program, Part 4, Mindful Intercultural Communication. In this video, we will follow the approach that mindful intercultural communication means to care for your own needs and the needs of your communication partner, and to be aware of the cultural coloration of both your needs. To make this clear, we will look at human needs, the role of human needs in social relations, the cultural character of human needs, and lastly explain the approach of mindful intercultural communication. Let's start with human needs. According to Maslow, as humans, we all have the same needs. In 1943, he published a groundbreaking article in the Psychological Review in which he explained the hierarchy of human needs. The most basic needs all humans share are physiological needs like food and rest. Once our physiological needs are satisfied, safety needs will dominate our behavior. They include seeking for health next to personal, emotional, and financial security. The next level of human needs is interpersonal and involves the need for love and belonging. As humans, we need to belong to our group or groups. We need to feel accepted, connected, and loved. This is why good and healthy relationships and friends are so important to us. The fourth level of needs, esteem, builds on the third. By our healthy social relationships, we can feel respected and esteemed by others, and we can develop self-respect and self-confidence. If all these needs are fulfilled, we can turn to human need or self-actualization, which means to realize or fulfill our own potential. Let's have a look at the role of these human needs within social relationships. Marshall B. Rosenberg, the father of nonviolent communication, stated, "All human actions are an attempt to meet needs." What did he mean by that? In our daily life, we are constantly trying to realize our needs. We do so consciously or subconsciously. And since we are herd animals and live within very close social relationships, we are constantly trying to balance our own needs and the needs of our communication partners. If we feel that this works out and our needs are met, we have positive emotions. But if we feel to fail and our needs are not met, we have negative emotions. As a consequence, it is important to realize that negative emotions in communication processes are the result of our own unfulfilled needs. Thus, if we have negative emotions during interactions, we should not blame our communication partner, but instead look inwards and ask ourselves, what exactly are my emotions? Which of my needs are not met? What can I do for the realization of my needs? Can I address this directly? The approach of nonviolent communication by Marshall B. Rosenberg, which you will get to know later in our program, shows us the way out of such situations. Just so much for now. If it works for you to address things directly, you can make a clear and achievable request based on your needs. When addressing your emotions and needs, always make sure to speak in I messages and to let your partner share in the inner thought patterns that led to this emotion. For example, when we talk about my family relationships and you're looking at the floor, I feel stressed because my need for contact and trust is not being met, which I need when I talk about sensitive topics. It may be a cultural thing, but for me, contact and trust are largely created through eye contact. If possible, could you please make eye contact with me every now and then in our conversation? As you can see from this example, it is important to examine the cultural character of human needs and their fulfillment. Even though we learned from Maslow that there are universal human needs, there are still influences that crucially determine their realization. One of the most prominent factors is culture. Culture influences our way of thinking and doing things, and thus the realization of our needs. Additionally, how we fulfill our needs will always be individual, meaning it has a personal touch. Let's take the example of the universal need for food. How we process our food and eating habits are determined by our culture. Additionally, all of us have specific personal preferences concerning food intake, for example, the amount of salt or the temperature of food. Thus, for our context of mindful intercultural communication, we can conclude that as humans, we all have universal needs, but their realization is crucially influenced by culture. Let's take some more examples from Maslow. If we look at our physiological needs, it is, for example, culturally influenced what we consider as good food or healthy food. Another example is attitudes towards resting. Do I rest by having a siesta, the traditional short nap after lunch, which is common in many countries where the weather is warm? Or do I rest in the evening, like common in colder countries? Concerning safety needs, in Hofstede's collectivistic countries, many people find financial and social safety within social networks, while in individualistic societies most people trust in their independence, their own financial power and insurances. Additionally, it is culturally influenced which behavior we consider as trustworthy. While in some countries the avoidance of direct eye contact can be interpreted as dishonesty and thus a signal for not being trustworthy, in other countries, depending on the social situation, the same behavior will be claimed as a signal for respect and thus trustworthiness. Looking at social needs, it is culturally dependent which communicative signals I need to feel loved, esteemed, or respected. Do I, for example, need people to verbalize this directly, like most people would in Hall's low-context cultures, or do I prefer indirect, non- or paraverbal signs, like most people would in high-context cultures? And which kind of non- or paraverbal signals am I susceptible for? Our perspective on self-actualization also varies. Do I need to have professional success to gain self-respect, like in Hofstede's masculine cultures, or can I achieve self-respect by being important within my social network, like in feminine cultures? Do I consider the preference of my social network in my personal biographical decisions, like many people would in collectivistic countries, or do I decide only on the basis of my own preferences, like many people would in individualistic societies? All these examples show that culture influences the realization of our human universal needs to a very high degree. Let's turn to the relevance of these differences in our concept of mindful intercultural communication. As we said before, mindful intercultural communication means to care for your own needs and the needs of your communication partner, being aware of their cultural coloration. Thus, in a first step, become aware of your needs and their cultural coloration. In all intercultural encounters, introspection is a valuable tool to become aware of your feelings. As feelings or emotions arise from underlying needs, or from their fulfillment or non-fulfillment, become aware of your needs. In a further step, become aware of the influence of your cultural identities on your needs, as well as on their fulfillment. Another part of cultural self-awareness is the reflection on your communicative behavior and its cultural imprints. In a second step, care for the needs of your communication partner. Try to recognize the cultural touch of their needs and their verbal, nonverbal, and paraverbal expression. The more you know about cultural differences and communication, and the more experience you have in intercultural encounters, the more you will become sensitized for these issues. Next to the recognition, try to actively adapt your communication to your communication partner. For example, your way of approaching topics, your volume of voice, speed, pauses, intensity, and spatial arrangement of your body language. The more you know about communication rules in other cultures, the more you can adapt your communication style to the cultural colorations of your communication partners. You will, for example, be capable to switch between high and low context, verbal and nonverbal communication, and additionally, in all communication, try to keep a gentle and loving attitude. A technique that can help us to consciously adapt our communication behavior to the needs of our communication partner is synchrony. Synchrony occurs automatically when people enjoy being together. Their non- and paraverbal behavior will slowly assimilate, completely unnoticed. This state reflects their interest, resonance, and harmony. We can use synchrony as a communication technique by adjusting our non- and paraverbal behavior consciously to the behavior of our communication partner. For example, we can adjust the volume of our voice, the frequency of gestures, our facial expressions, and eye communication behavior. This will create a relaxed and harmonious atmosphere. We hope that in this video we could bring the topic of mindful intercultural communication closer to you. Please keep in mind that mindfulness in intercultural situations means to be aware of your needs, your communication partner's needs, their cultural coloration, and to care for those needs. We wish you joyful intercultural encounters.